Ruth, I bought this issue of Satan's Son by mistake. I thought this was written by the second short-term writer on this series, but it turns out it is written by the first short-term writer on this series. Surprisingly, I am glad I did, because this actually isn't bad, and it made me reconsider a lot of things, and the result is that I hopefully now will produce a video that not only gets across how much disdain I have for most of this title, but now, with the heavy amount of research I have put into the origins of this series over the years, I can properly dole out the hatred I feel to the appropriate targets rather than simply everyone involved. This is issue 6. It is a standalone story. It is even in the vein of classic Satan's Son stories, where he would investigate an occult phenomenon, or he would perform an exorcism. We have got a little girl called Lisa. She is dead. She was murdered by her uncle. And we have lots of backstory provided here. We have got one of those insufferable Dragon Strike adverts coming up. But before that, I want to note that this issue does not feature any of the distasteful elements of this series. Not really. They even call Satan's Son by his original surname throughout. We don't have his brain-dead, abused wife. We don't have rampant retconning and dismissal of every past Satan's Son story. And we don't have the I am not the son of Satan, because Satan is a religious idea and all religions on earth are fantasy. None of that bullshit. None of it. Just a very simple exorcism story with Satan's Son. I feel this is what this writer wanted to do, and it would have been far better than having him script the first 3 issues of someone else's plots and ideas. So, Dragon Strike is this daft role-playing game that always had advertisements in comics that took up anywhere from 3 to 9 pages of an issue. I'll use this as a break to talk about the history of this Satan's Son series, and I think you may facepalm when you hear whose feet I am putting the blame. This Satan's Son series launched in 1993 with issue 1. It is a terrible, terrible issue, and then issues 2 and 3 are even worse. Issue 2 features a column at the back written by editor Fabio Nicieza, where he talks about the creation of the series. You want to know whose fault it is? Kurt fucking Busey. Before even taking pictures for the title, Fabio Nicieza was having lunches with Kurt Busey to discuss and work out what the series would be. Kurt Busey was one of the candidates who eventually did pitch for the series. He doesn't write the series. He receives no formal credit anywhere on the series. But you know what? Those first 3 issues are unmistakably Kurt Busey's handiwork. For the sake of coherence, here is a graphic to summarise the writers and the writing credits for this series. These are official credits here, and now let's add in what I believe to be the case. I believe Kurt Busey's pitch was picked. The odds were stacked in his favour, with him having already spent time with the editor, explaining and working on ideas for the series. The 2 other confirmed pitches were reworked elsewhere. Here's what happened. Kurt Busey plotted those first 3 issues. He plotted the starting point of this series. And then, as he often has required, he needed a scripter to actually write it. Kurt Busey isn't credited because it was 1993 and he hadn't done Marvels yet, so he was nobody. And he was already tapped out, and some promising new writer whose only Marvel credits are 6 issues of Satan's Son, they were given the task of writing scripts to go with Kurt Busey's hideous, mean-spirited plots. I don't consider this projecting. You cannot mistake the sheer level of Kurt Busey in those first 3 issues. The first issue brings back the nameless Daimon from a random issue of Defenders just to undo and retcon and ruin that original story. In issue 2, Satan's Son goes through all his past appearances, saying how they don't count and that he was pretending to be a noble superhero and it was all smoke and mirrors. We have random pulls from continuity for no reason, except for Kurt Busey to prove a point that he is a fanboy. We have Gabriel from Horn of Horror. We have the Sons of Santa-ish. We have Etrigan from the Defenders. We have the aforementioned Nameless Demon. We have Serapha Thames. The plots are occupied with minor details that seemingly only upset Kurt Busey's narrow-minded, pedantic brain. Like how he had to invent a fictional war because he couldn't stand the idea of the Vietnam War being important to several Marvel characters. Kurt Busey doesn't like that the character featured in superhero stories by his beloved Steve Englehart went on to marry Satan's Son in comics that he never read. He doesn't like that Satan's Son, by nature, means that a definitive Satan exists in the Marvel Comics universe. He cannot sleep at night because there is a demon that took on the form of Satan's Son out there as a loose end. Even though the fucking original story ended with the demon being told to adopt a new form. That first issue is incomprehensible if you have not read that one Defenders issue that he is hell-bent on undoing and disqualifying for some reason. I fucking hate Kurt Busey. Everything he has ever done, everything he has ever touched. He has only ruined things. And this issue proved to me that as much as a writer is to blame for a bad story, sometimes they are handed a pile of shit to write around. This guy, the writer of this, he had an Eisner nomination before this. His only work at Marvel is these 6 issues of Satan's Son. His major comics work is defined by the shoddy, retcon-filled, incomprehensible plot he had to handle for the launch of the series. This issue may be the closest we ever got to see him actually write an issue unencumbered by someone else's framework or editorial, and this is actually good enough that I now forgive the writer. With that said, there is one page I don't like. One suggestion in line with what came before. Some rapey shit. But let's avoid that. A pastor from Lisa's town has come to visit Satan's Son because there is a lot more to Lisa's murder than suspected. And now Lisa is haunting her family. So the question you might be left with is, what about after those first 3 issues? Issue 4 is one I have reviewed, and it is bad for a different reason. Issues 4 and 5 represent something truly special in comics. That is, an editor who could not even broker a guest appearance from the one guest star who appeared in every fucking Marvel series in the 90s. Issues 4 and 5 were meant to be a team-up with Ghost Rider. A team-up that makes the most sense in the world. Satan's Son was introduced in the 70s in Ghost Rider stories. In the 90s, Ghost Rider would guest star in everything, even in stuff you would think did not need Ghost Rider. We're talking Thor, we're talking Excellent Man, we're talking Spider-Man. Obviously, the stuff lower down the totem pole, they were filled with Ghost Rider guest appearances too. It was like a thing they did because Ghost Rider was very popular. Ghost Rider was, in actual fact, the character that Wolfman got the reputation for being. Ghost Rider was the guest star they would put in a random issue of anything to try and improve sales. You would have to imagine, due to the extreme level of Ghost Rider guest appearances, it was very, very easy to arrange a guest appearance with the editor of Ghost Rider. Editor Fabio Nicieza could not manage that, and instead, the issues were hastily reworked and now scripted by someone else to not feature Ghost Rider, but feature the most blatant Ghost Rider substitute around. He has a motor bicycle with a medallion that he presses to become a flaming scold bike-riding demon. Ludicrous. I think it is quite clear that after writing someone else's story and then having the second story so profusely reworked, this writer was done. He was done with Marvel. He didn't like the Marvel style. He had a short experience and it was entirely unfulfilling. Based on this, maybe he even liked Satan's Son, or the original Satan's Son stories, or some of the ideas attached to the character. This is in the style of those 70s Marvel Spotlight issues. A proposed crossover with Ghost Rider is paying off the character's origins. Maybe more of this. Maybe, just maybe, we could have salvaged Summer here. This story relies on a twist, and it is an okay twist. and I don't want to give it away. I cannot recommend this. I am sorry to the writer. I am willing to believe you had potential, and of your 6 issues, this one, the one that is clearly your own, is far and away the best thing of your run. I don't know why I am speaking to him directly. I doubt he is a subscriber after I tore up his 2nd issue, mocked his 4th issue, and then miscredited him as being Warren Fallis in one of the very first videos I made. I enjoyed this, but it is always surrounded by things that only work to drag it down. I'll give it 7 thumbs up.